Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another Wine Spectator two-bottle tasting series. I am Keith Goldston, the Corporate Master Sommelier for Landry's, and joining me today is Travis Hinkle, Advanced Sommelier and Beverage Director for the Grand Award-winning Post Oak Hotel in Houston, Texas. Travis, welcome back.
Be back.
So today we're doing sparkling wine from Italy. I don't think it gets much better. I mean, it's time for the holidays. It's time for bubbles. And we're going to be tasting two of Ferrari's spectacular bubbles, the regular Brute, the Rosé. And there's something kind of, I mean, not necessarily unique, but this is a little bit of an outlier for a lot of the Italian sparkling wines we see. And why is that, Travis?
Many of our viewers will have enjoyed Prosecco before. This is actually, if you notice on the label, going to be labeled as Mutato Classico, or classical method. So this is a sparkling wine that's being made with that more labor-intensive, more aged process, where the wines are fermented for one time and then put back into the bottle to be fermented a second time. And that's going to give it its effervescence and its bubbles, but it also does something really special. After that yeast goes through and completes its fermentation, it's going to age on the wine for a period of time. And that aging on the yeast, or the lees they call it in the winery, is what gives these sparkling wines their depth and complexity. So I'm thinking notes of brioche and almond, and almost like those bakery aromas that we love with fine champagne being found in Mutato Classico sparkling wines like these wonderful ones from Ferrari today.
Yeah, well, and it's funny. It's like hearing you describe that. It sounds delicious, and I can't wait to like dive in and taste. But one of the wonderful things about sparkling wine is breakfast time, delicious. Lunchtime, delicious. Dinner, is there a better way? Okay, maybe gin and tonics aside, but sparkling wine to start any meal, especially a great dinner, is amazing. And then what's really kind of cool is you can take it throughout the meal. And I love that there's different variations. Like the rosé definitely has a little bit more body richness, so it can actually hold up to something, lighter poultries, maybe even almost entrees. And I love that we associate bubbles with celebration and happiness, and we should never lose that. But I think sometimes we forget that it's a pretty darn tasty wine, and it really pairs great with food, no matter where you have it in the meal. So, don't feel like it's just a stepping stone to white wine or red wine, because it can be absolutely delicious the whole way through. Travis, don't you and your wife have like a tradition with bubbles? Like, what's your, anniversary tradition with bubbles?
Huge sparkling wine fan. And so, yeah, any kind of occasion, whether it's anniversary or entering into the holiday season, whatever, is a perfect excuse for me to pop a great bottle of bubbles. But also, and I'm glad you brought this up, this is a drum that I beat all the time, that sparkling wine is not only about celebration. The versatility of the zippiness of acidity, that light effervescence, and then the broad varieties of styles between something like a Blanc de Blanc, which we'll taste here in a minute, and then something, a rosé with a higher proportion of Pinot Noir, completely different styles, and can go well throughout the length of the meal. And so I hope we'll find that as we go through and taste these here in just a minute. But Keith, do you want to talk to us about Ferrari, who we're tasting today?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those producers that a lot of us in the industry have always kind of just said like, yes, because it's a little bit fine, but it almost always over delivers for the price point. And there's just a quality, a precision, a refinement there that, for a lot of us, that's what we love about sparkling wine, is that elegance and refinement. And it's hard to kind of quantify it, but when you taste it, you know it. And for me, Ferrari's always been a great symbol of that. It's a kind of fun story. Giulio Ferrari, back in the late 1800s, had actually went over to France. The whole big boom of sparkling wine was happening. Champagne was going crazy. There was even a time in the middle of the 1800s where the most expensive, most widely produced sparkling wine in the world was actually coming out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So it's just this crazy thing, kind of like you think of like the Belle Epoque days, the Roaring Twenties. Like everyone was starting to drink bubbles and love them. So Giulio was in France, saw how to make it, and he thought to his homeland, to Trento, Trentino, which is right at the base of the Dolomites, the Italian Alps, and thought that would be a great spot to grow grapes for sparkling wine. So he was actually the first person to bring Chardonnay to Italy, and he planted it for the sole purpose to make sparkling wine. And that was going all the way back in 1902. So the winery itself was established over 100 years ago. And somehow he was able to make it through World War One, the Great Depression, World War II. And I think after World War II, especially even he had to like basically wall off part of the winery to hide bottles. After World War II, a couple things happened. First off, he found out that those wines with the extra aging that he had hidden away actually tasted even better. So that kind of started the tradition of this extra long aging on the lees, like you mentioned, but they've actually kind of even go further than a lot of champagne houses do, which is awesome. But also too, he realized that he didn't have children to kind of hand the winery off to. So he wanted to find a family that could keep the tradition. And that's where the Lunelli family comes into the picture, and particularly Bruno Lunelli, who was a wine merchant who had been selling the Ferrari wines for many years. And Giulio thought, this is a perfect guy. He understands the wines and he has a family who basically wants to run it. So Bruno Lunelli purchased it, I think it was like 1952, right around there. And basically it's now been in the Lunelli family ever since. And I'm really happy because later we get to bring in Matteo and, talk with the third generation who's actually running the winery now. So I'm thirsty. How about we start tasting? I mean, I know we've got these two bottles here. We've got them open. Travis, you want to lead us through the Brute?
So our first wine today is the Ferrari Brute. You notice from this wonderful golden color, this is being made from 100% Chardonnay. And we've talked a little bit about Chardonnay. Again, one of the main grapes utilized in Champagne, France, and also wonderfully successful in Trentodoc. But what you're looking for with Blanc de Blanc Champagne, or what I'm looking for, is not only this wonderful, refreshing tartness. So for me, I get fresh lemon and citrus fruits, Granny Smith apple, but then it comes in with those wonderful aged notes as well, which again goes back to that Matato Classico kind of style of winemaking, where you get those notes of almond, brioche, pie crust, this really wonderful savory nuttiness that sets it apart from more aromatic and fruit-driven styles of sparkling wines.
The palate, the energy is amazing. And I don't want to sound like all new age hippie, like, ooh, the energy, but there's just a focus and drive to this that that just goes and goes and goes. And it's so hard to quantify that to people, but like you try this versus something else, you're like, oh, I see what Keith is talking about. But it's so darn tasty. I don't know about
and for
you
me,
on the palate.
in well-made Blanc de Blanc, there's three things that happens when you get the wine on the palate. First of all, that mouth-watering kind of acidity shows itself. It just makes it seem refreshing and energetic. And then in the mid palate, you have this broadening out where you're getting those, again, this mouth-filling presence from that lees aging. And then it finishes right down the center of your tongue with this wonderful mineral character. And for me, that's almost like oyster shell and wet rock. Kind of strange wine terms, but these are one of the things that when you're Hugh, your sommelier talking about terroir and earthiness, this is what distinguishes, say, your average sparkling wine from your really well-made, iconic style.
Yeah, and also too, one of those things that tasting lots of sparkling wine, and like for me, like the comp or the normal analogy would be to look to champagne. And Blanc de Blanc is a style, like I heart Blanc de Blanc. I mean, it's, to me, I'd say arguably maybe the best use of Chardonnay on the planet. But having said that, it needs time. And there's no way to kind of replace that extended aging, because when you have it all by itself, it's angry. I mean, it's like a child throwing a tantrum. It's just edgy, acidic, rough, and just not pleasant. But after about a couple years on the lees, and this guy has at least 20 months, probably even a little bit longer from the taste of it, it just starts to round out that edge and just that focus and drive and refinement. And I love that about a well-made Blanc de Blanc. And it's kind of hard to hide that. Like the only way to get around that is just really great patience with the lees aging. Shall we go on to the rosé?
So the next we have the Ferrari Brute Rosé here. And you can see in the glass just this wonderful kind of light salmon color to it. And then getting on the nose, you notice the difference right away. So this one has about 60% Pinot Noir, supplemented by 40% Chardonnay. And you can really tell on the nose, it's got these wonderful sort of tart strawberry and red raspberry characteristics to it. Beautiful red rose notes, and almost this slightly savory kind of herbal character to it as well.
Yeah, and Travis, what's that really cool, awesome name that the Italians call Pinot Noir?
That's right. We're in Italy, so we have to say Pinot Nero, not Pinot Noir, right? But same grape we're dealing with here.
Yeah, they need to come up with like a cool name for Chardonnay. You know, because like Pinot Nero sounds awesome. Pinot Bianco is way cooler than Pinot Blanc. You know, I don't know.
Matteo later, I'm sure.
But great call on and it's just night and day, and in terms of the bouquet, and I love that. And this is also why we as kind of wine people get excited about like a producer like Ferrari, because the region tastes through. I mean, they taste like cold alpine mountains. And you get that from like, you can almost feel the sun beating down on it. If anyone's ever been up at high elevation, you know, like it's like shocking how hot it is in the sun, but then you get into the shade and it drops like 20, 30 degrees. So there's this kind of tension of ripeness and coolness. And I love that that shows through on both wines, but then it's so clearly like the first one, it tastes like Chardonnay. It tastes like a proper Blanc de Blanc. Then on this guy, it's only 60% Pinot Nero, but it's just amazing what almost like a blank canvas it is for the Pinot notes to just jump out. And I just think of those little like tiny little baby wild strawberries. I remember seeing like those in a restaurant going like, oh my gosh, they're so cute. But it's that kind of tart, delicious little wild strawberry kind of thing that just makes you want to go in and keep drinking more of this.
The differences on the palate too. So you get it on the palate and it's a lot broader. It has a little bit more body and structure and depth to it in that way. And like we were saying before, this is a perfect example of how still sparkling wines, right? But you can deal with these very, very differently at the table. So for me, something like this Brut Rosé can do wonderfully with seafood or as an aperitivo, but it could also stand up to red meats as well. Things like duck and even lighter cuts of steak like filet and Ferrari Rosé is a perfect pairing. The acidity keeps everything nice and refreshing. And then, you know, we, for example, feature Ferrari Rosé at our Mastro's steakhouses, right? And so Mastro's has a big seafood component, but of course you're going to a steakhouse for that rich steak accompanied by sides. And the reason I like to recommend sparkling wines for steakhouse experiences is you have all kinds of different dishes, all kinds of different flavors and textures, and sparkling wines just play well with everything. It really is the perfect match when you're talking about a steakhouse experience.
Yeah, well, and also too, I love it, you know, because Mastro's is all about, you know, enjoying life in its fullest. And I absolutely love like the sushi sashimi with sticks. Like, why hadn't we thought of that beforehand? But like this with that to like begin your Mastro's experience, like yes, it's like perfect. Like I feel like a bottle, half bottle of this to get started. I'm already happy before I even get to the sticks. So, you know, there's something about that as your nice little segue. Like, it doesn't mean you don't have to enjoy your big red later, but trust me, your seafood tower or your sashimi tower will taste better with Ferrari Rosé. That's all I got to say. Go to Masters, have it, try it. So I think we should probably bring in Matteo, don't you think?
Everybody, we're so excited to have Matteo Lunelli of Ferrari Winery joining us all the way from Italy. Matteo, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you very much for hosting me, and thanks for what you said about Ferrari. I'm certainly very happy that you enjoyed our Ferrari Trentodoc.
Fantastic. Matteo, I know that it is a family-run business, and you are now the third generation. So as running it as your family, what do you see for the future of Ferrari? How do you look back at your grandfather, great-grandfather? How do you respect their tradition? You know, it's in this very corporate world we live in, it's nice to actually see family-run businesses.
Yeah, we think that the family must be a culture carrier. We are proud to preserve the value that made Ferrari great over the time, which are the value of our founder, Giulio Ferrari. You know, I think, for example, you know, the search of excellence in every detail, it's part of the DNA of this winery that started from the founder. The link with the territory of Trentino, this intimate link with the territory of Trentino is something that we are very proud of and that we will continue as a legacy for the future. And then I think the control of the production process from the soil to the table, because we think only controlling the full process, you know, from the vineyard up to the table, we can really create an amazing and outstanding sparkling wine. So these values are what I think as a family we want to preserve, but we're lucky to have an incredibly talented team that share the passion of creating Ferrari with us. So we are a family business, we are a family company, but we really have a fantastic team. Some of them have been with us for many years. Our chef de cave have done over 30 harvests. So I think this is what makes us great.
And Matteo, of course, you're unique in Italy, where the winery has been around for a long time by sparkling wine standards, and so you've come to know Trentodoc maybe better than anybody. How would you describe the terroir of Trentodoc, and are there things looking forward that have you concerned about a changing climate or anything else?
First of all, we like to say that Trentodoc is a mountain sparkling wine. So the terroir of Trentino is characterized by the mountains, and the style of our wines come from our mountain vineyards. Because on the mountains, we have really a unique climate conditions. The fact of being a mountain sparkling wine makes us unique in the world. So on the slope of the mountains of Trentino, our vineyards during the summer are kissed by the sun in the day, but in the night, the cold air comes down from the top of the mountain. And this diurnal shifting temperature between day and night, which is very strong, it's very important because it enables the grape to achieve aromatic maturation, but maintaining a well-balanced acidity. So this is crucial. This is very important because it is something that gives to our Trentodoc finesse, elegance, and longevity. So I think it's all about our mountains, and this is what make the style of Ferrari and the style of Trentodoc unique.
Matteo, if I read correctly, I believe that you guys are also looking towards the future, and sustainability is a big part of how you farm. And are you guys certified organic as well, too, correct?
Yes. All our estate vineyards are certified organic. And it has been, for us, a strong commitment to sustainability because we believe in sustainability. We believe we live in a beautiful environment, so we need to protect it. Trentino is a wonderful land, and we want to create excellent grapes, but at the same time protect the environment and the health of the people that work with us in the vineyard. So we have been strongly committed to sustainability, and we demonstrated that it was possible to make organic viticulture also in Trentino and in the mountains. We started it many years ago, and we really had to discover, how to make organic viticulture in the mountains, because in the mountain, the climate is not as easy as it can be in other environments. But we made it, and now we think not only we preserve the environment, not only it's a sustainable viticulture, but this has enabled us to achieve even higher quality grapes. And again, regarding the mountains, you mentioned also a look to the future. So we live in a world which unfortunately is witnessing a global warming. And in that respect, I think in Trentino we are lucky because for winemaking, we can balance, this increasing temperature by moving higher and higher our vineyards. So this is what we are making. All our new vineyards are planted at higher altitude, or all the new supplier and vine growers that come to work with us usually have higher altitude vineyards. So we are increasing the average altitude of our vineyards. And long term, this will compensate the climate change and the change in average temperature. Just to give you an example, if you move 100 meters higher on the slope of our mountains, you get 1 degree less in average temperature during the year. So, we are now cultivating the vines where at the time of Giulio Ferrari in 1902, when he founded Ferrari Winery, probably was not possible. And, the next generation will go probably higher. And so that's the trend. Even if, obviously, I hope that we, globally will do our best to stop this process and stop this global warming, because obviously this is not sustainable long term.
And then speaking of just Italian sparkling wines in general, I know here in the U.S., a lot of people kind of think, about Prosecco when they think of Italy and sparkling wines. And to me, it's a completely different style. And I don't necessarily want to say Matado Classico is better than Prosecco, but I feel like there's a very different style. And I feel like, if you could probably explain a little better than me. So if you could at least walk us through like how you see Ferrari is different than Prosecco and, what the consumer should think about.
No, it's a good point because Prosecco and Prosecco Superior and Trentodoc are two completely different wines. By the way, we in Lunelli Group we produce also a Prosecco of Valdobbiadene called the Bisol. So we own a winery in the Prosecco area, and so we are. That. Oh yeah, thank you. But so we want to always to emphasize the diversity of Italian sparkling wine. So Prosecco Superiore di Valdobbiadene is a wine where the second fermentation happens in stainless steel tanks and is made with Glera grape. When we talk about Trentodoc, we use only Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and it's a Metodo Classico, so it's a bottle fermented sparkling wine. So basically, everything is different, grape variety, production method, and terroir. So we are talking about very different wines, which have very different pairing and very different, probably, consumption occasion. Sometimes in the world, people, some of the consumer, they call Prosecco an Italian sparkling wine, but actually, Prosecco and especially Prosecco Superiore is a denomination dedicated to a very specific wine, as much as we are a Trentodoc, which I mentioned is a mountain sparkling wine. In the overall production of sparkling wine in Italy, Metodo Classico represents the pinnacle of the production, a very small percentage. We produce in Italy over 500 million bottles, and there are probably around 30 million bottles of Metodo Classico. And a small portion of it is Trentodoc, because we are a small denomination in the middle of the mountains of Trentino. And so it's basically the niche and the pinnacle of the Italian sparkling wine production. So we are proud to say that probably, Ferrari historically is the authentic Italian luxury sparkling wine.
So of course, Italy is known for having such a rich and wonderful culinary history and an incredible amount of variation from the north to the south. And I know that Ferrari is a favorite of Italians. What would you say are some of your favorite things to eat alongside Ferrari wines?
You mentioned something before that I actually, I perfectly agree. It's our Ferrari Trentodoc is very versatile in pairing with food. I would say that it's a food-friendly wine. So the pairing can be very, very different. And we have worked a lot on experimenting new pairing of Ferrari with food because we have our own restaurant in the middle of our vineyards, which is called Locanda Margone, and it's a Michelin star restaurant. So usually with the Ferrari Trentodoc, you can start from the aperitivo, where you eat, perhaps in Italy, we use to eat many small bites at the aperitivo, some Parma ham perhaps, or mozzarella, olives, Parmesan. This is perfect because our Ferrari is flexible in pairing. And so in an aperitivo where you eat these small bites or tapas, our Ferrari Trentodoc is perfect pairing with the different dishes. You can also pair it with meat, as you said. Sometimes with the filet. The rosé is very interesting. You probably think about Cabernet Sauvignon when you talk about a steak, but sometimes it's good also to try with sparkling wine, especially the rosé. An interesting pairing is pizza e bollicine. In Italy, we are starting to see a very positive trend of people that pair gourmet pizza, so high-end and great quality pizza, with our Ferrari Trentodoc. So a great margherita, where you have the mozzarella and the tomato, can be, again, a good pairing for our Ferrari Rosé. Perhaps then a pizza with more cheese or more ham can be more for our Ferrari Brute, Blanc de Blanc. But then, again, go for the first course, talking about pasta. If you eat a carbonara has this it's a little bit fatty, and the acidity, the freshness of our Ferrari balance it very well. Or you can, really the number of pairing are incredibly, are a lot, and not only the standard historical pairing with fish or white meat. You can really be creative with pairing our Ferrari.
More, and here in the United States, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and so sparkling rosé, for example, the Ferrari Brute rosé is one of those wines that works so well alongside turkey and everything else that we enjoy for Thanksgiving here in the States.
Yes, and in Italy, certainly, the holiday season is typically a season for celebrating with the family. Obviously, this year is a little bit special. So, but for sure, people will not avoid having at least a glass of good wine and perhaps a Ferrari with the family. It's a tradition in Italy to have Ferrari at Christmas time and New Year. That's what it's a tradition that obviously we are very proud of, because we are proud to say that we are a little bit the toast of Italy par excellence, and it's a tradition that I hope will continue even this year. With as you said, you can start with Ferrari at the aperitivo, and then perhaps you can continue all throughout the meal. Historically, sparkling wine in general was considered a celebratory wine. Certainly it is good for celebration, and it's great sometimes to have a sparkling wine to celebrate an occasion, but it's a food-friendly wine, as we mentioned, and you can certainly enjoy it the best pairing it with great food. And, Christmas time is perfect.
Well, I have to say, Matteo, listening to you talk, and well, first off, I'm just super jealous because just the way you say mozzarella, it sounds even better. Like, I guarantee it will taste better with that accent.
Yeah, but because mozzarella has this sweetness, and that speaks very well. Even just ham and mozzarella with a Ferrari is, or tomato and mozzarella with Ferrari is so simple, but it's a great dish.
Yeah, and that's funny because it's also the saltiness, and I think some people don't understand how good it is to have something refreshing and crisp to balance the saltiness. But absolutely spectacular wines. For a lot of us in the industry, they've been kind of like our hidden little gems for many years. And like I said earlier, they've always have over-delivered for the price. And what you get in the bottle is delicious and spectacular. So thank you for all of your hard work. And for those of you out watching, trust me, go find a couple bottles of Ferrari, bring a Ferrari home for the holidays. It is worth the hunt because the wines are delicious. Travis, as always, a joy to taste with you and share the stage. And Matteo, thank you for joining us all the way from Italy. It's kind of, in this year of not being able to get together, at least virtually, it's still nice. So thank you so much for the wonderful wines, and cheers.
Cheers. No, thanks to you for the kind words about Ferrari, and thanks for your comments. And by the way, I want to say to all the people listening to us that as soon as all this pandemic will end, I hope we'll have the chance to visit Italy, to travel to Italy, and obviously to come and see our Trentino, which is truly a beautiful land. Somebody probably has heard also about the Dolomites, which are UNESCO heritage, beautiful mountains. And so come and visit us. We look forward to welcoming you.